After a very great first 30 minutes of WWE Raw tonight, showcasing our brand new, badass, monstrous WWE champion, the show kind of went downhill and sort of sucked a bag of dicks at the end. Or not at the end, but in general. This is your WWE Raw review for March 8th, 2021. What's going on, guys? Good mic work. Back at you. Raw just went off the air. We got a couple of ideas of what we're probably going to see at Fastlane, and we had a little bit more going on with the Fiend, Randy Orton, and Alexa Bliss saga, and we probably have an idea of what Sheamus and Drew McIntyre are going to be doing a week from Sunday. And of course, Bobby Lashley did defend the WWE title tonight and did not break much of a sweat, beating up little bitch Miz, which was very nice and very fun to see. And that hurt business with all that gold and MVP. That's what I was waiting to see tonight. It looked great off the heels of Bobby Lashley's WWE title win last week, and he looked pretty damn impressive tonight. And I got to say, Bruno's record might be in jeopardy. Some serious jeopardy. Lashley looks pretty unstoppable. It's like fucking Zeus with Brock Lesnar's fighting ability. Holy shit. Like, that ain't scary at all. So I am very, very much in love with this idea of putting the strap on Lashley, seeing where it goes. And I don't know. We got a lot to talk about in terms of WrestleMania, too. We've got some WWE Network Peacock stuff to get into as well. And, of course, lots of WrestleMania speculation. Tickets are going on sale for that event very soon. As they announced tonight, I guess that's going to be the tagline for WrestleMania, back in business. So that's kind of nice to know that we're going to see some fans there, and it's going to be a pretty cool deal. So anyway, we are entering our third day straight of streaming here on the channel. We were up here on Saturday for a nice, really fun and long podcast. Last night was a big fun, really big good time here on the channel as we reviewed the AEW Revolution pay-per-view and all of the good and bad that came along with that. Really fun stream last night as well. And now we got to come up here and discuss Raw and some of the matches here and what they're doing heading into to Fastlane. It doesn't really, I mean, I know it's still pandemic, still Thunderdome era, so everything is a little bit different, but you're not getting that WrestleMania season vibe right now, at least not yet. But I think they're going to really put the pedal to the metal as we get on the other side of Fastlane, and things will start to come together because we saw a lot of seeds planted, and I don't know what the shit is going on with Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon. That was some of the most awkward shit I've ever seen tonight that stretched, I think, 3 segments, 2 in the ring, and then 1 or 2 backstage, 3 or 4 little segments that this nonsense, the time that it took up tonight was ridiculous because we don't know what the fuck they're doing. So probably going to be something involving Shane and Strowman at Mania, but exactly what and why is kind of the big question there. And it's, I don't know. So give me your letter grades. I forgot to mention that as we opened here. A, B, C, or D on the show tonight. You can give me your 1 through 10s as well. However you like to grade the show, let me know what you thought of it. Off the top of my head, I can't give the show any better than a C+. And that's basically just riding on Lashley looking so awesome and tapping out the Miz like the bitch that he is to open the show. That was all fun, great, and awesome and everything, but the rest of it, it was what it was. I need some alcohol. Cheers. Broken Skull IPA. Courtesy is my dad's beer. And of course, I foamed it up, so let me just let that cool off for a minute. And we'll get into it. Let me go over here, say hello to everybody that's here in the chat, read some letter grades on Monday Night Raw, answer the super chats that we're hanging out in here. Way at the top, Tar Brehan, the $5 drop that you sent in earlier on. That was about an hour ago before I even went live, and you are not unable to make it, but I at least want to shout you out on the stream anyway. Thank you very much for that, and I appreciate it. And thanks for being here earlier. Good to see Diet Water in the house, Monkey Wrench. Good to see Ungovernable, King Aladdin, JL, and then Spencer and Zane G. And Cerebrus, Crush, JJ Leg, Tenteni, Ryan is here. All right. Arnez is here. And thank you, Corpse97, for that. Appreciate the 5. My nips hard, my baby skewer crack, good mic work. The man, let's go. Didn't see this show again. Can't wait to hear everyone's opinions. Lots of love. Well, thank you for that. Very interesting super chat. I love it. Thanks so much. George Morris is here with 5 as well. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? 0 out of 10 for Raw tonight. It just gets worse and worse and worse. My new cat is fighting with my other 3 and 2 guys in handcuffs outside. George Morris, by the way, he's like 2 doors down from hell. And so all sorts of crazy stuff always happens with him. We love to read the dramatic stories from George, and he takes time out every Monday to come in and tell us about the complete tornadoes that are going around in his life. So George, thanks for being here again. Appreciate you fighting through all this in order to spend time with us tonight. Off Leather Wings is back as well. with $5. You can only choose two: Macho Man, HBK, Undertaker, Edge, and Eddie. Or I'm sorry, Eddie and Angle, excuse me. Only choose two for what? To like go to the movies with? I'd probably have to say, let's kick Shawn Michaels out. He's no fun. Let me see. Nah, I don't want Taker either. I want to go out with Macho Man and Eddie Guerrero. Imagine that, those two guys together. They're both crazy. HBK isn't crazy in that way. Like, he's not like psychotic crazy. Undertaker's got a cool head, and Angle is Angle. So I think Macho Man and Eddie together, those are two very, very wild personalities, and they'd be fun to go to the movies with, or at least out drinking with. So, yeah, me, Macho Man, and Eddie hitting the town. Chasing whores, as my uncle used to say. Oh, man, Uncle Bill. Then that would be fun, the three of us. So, yeah, I'm picking Macho and Eddie on that. Here's some letter grades for Raw coming in. C, -0. D, C-, 2.5 stars. C+, D, D+, mid-10, D. All right, people are in C, another C here. People are giving this thing mostly C's and D's. I kind of got to agree. I just don't want to give the show a shitty grade when Lashley looks so awesome. But we'll get into it. We'll go, match by match and all that stuff here in a second. We'll talk a little bit about WWE's transition over to the Peacock Network, and I want to let you guys know about a watch-along this coming Sunday. Damn, can I drink? What the hell's wrong with me? There we go. Try that again. Yeah, I learned how to drink once when I was like 5. Sorry about not being able to pull that off here on the stream. Anyway, we got a big watch-along coming up this Sunday, as I've been announcing on the channel, that I want to try to do 3-day streaming weekends every weekend between now and WrestleMania, meaning I'll be up here Saturday for the podcast, Sunday either for a pay-per-view review if there is one, or we're going to do a WrestleMania watch-along. And then, of course, I'm here every Monday for the Raw review. So this coming Sunday, the 14th, we have no pay-per-view, so we're going to do a watch-along. And we talked a little bit about it last night, and I have decided on the WrestleMania that I want to do, WrestleMania 19. It was down to this one and a couple of others. I'm still going to do a couple more before WrestleMania, so I'll try to maybe do an older one. A lot of requests for WrestleMania 4. That one might be a fun one to do, but I think this Sunday we're going to do WrestleMania 19. We had a really good turnout for WrestleMania 17 a couple of weeks ago, and that was a really fun time with a really, really loaded, stacked card, and I think that's why the video did so well. So I think WrestleMania 19 is another pay-per-view that just has a lot going on. Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, The Rock, Stone Cold, Angle, Brock. So much happening at that pay-per-view. And it was an interesting show being at a baseball stadium at Safeco Field in Seattle. And it was just a kind of a crazy time in 2003. So we're going to be watching together this Sunday, WrestleMania 19. We're going to go live at 8 p.m. here on the West Coast. Or I'm sorry, 5 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. So if you're in New York or whatever time over there, we'll get cracking around 8 p.m. and I'll be going up at 5 here in California. So anyway, keep that in mind for this weekend. And of course, we'll be up here the day before on Saturday for a full podcast discussing the week's news, results, and all that BS. So anyway, want to let you guys know about that and make you aware of that. There was some news coming out today as well that I just wanted to mention on WWE's transition to the Peacock Network. Now, I've been wondering about this myself. I have not even gone, I thought about this just yesterday, actually, so it's ironic that this info came out today, because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I better start Googling or researching what I should do about Peacock. How is it going to work? If is it different for network subscribers? Do we go to a certain part of Peacock and plug our information in and then it merges it or whatever? But it sounds like we are going to be responsible for signing up to the Peacock Network ourselves, and then the WWE Network will just cancel out and cease to exist. And then I guess you can pick your pay options there. So it sounds like you're not going to be automatically transferred over to Peacock. You are going to have to do a little bit of work, which is not hard. These streaming apps are everywhere. So I'll just go on Peacock, I'll order it, start up a service, and pay for the premium or whatever it is. I want to make sure I can see as few ads as possible. So whatever their premium service is, I will get that. And I guess that's that. And then the network just, I think, officially ends for us here in the US on April 4th. And I'm assuming so will the payments. I guess there's some additional information coming out about this. This is taken from Fightful. It says on Monday afternoon, WWE and Peacock provided details on the upcoming merger. WWE Network will shut down in the United States on April 4, and the library of content will slowly transition to Peacock. The press release stated, quote, Peacock will continually add WWE Network content to the library, making the entire WWE Network archive, including every WWE, WCW, and ECW pay-per-view event in history, available to stream on demand before SummerSlam. So they're planning to get all this up. There's a lot of content. You're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of hours. So it ain't going to be easy to make that big transition and port all that shit over. So that'll take a while. They're claiming they're going to get it done by SummerSlam. We'll see. Cool. Anyway, The Verge has additional details on the merger, reporting that there will no longer be match markers on events, and that is a little bit handy. I've only used those a couple of times on the, like when I'm playing on my, if I pull it up on my Roku device or something, a pay-per-view, and I can go to a specific match. That is very convenient. But at the same time, it's probably not going to be a feature that I personally am going to miss very much because I don't use it that often. So that really doesn't freak me out. But apparently it's just going to be one long video now, so you're going to have to fast forward, rewind to get to where you want to be. Additionally, the search feature won't be as comprehensive, at least not initially, which that kind of sucks because I already have a bitch of a time searching anything on that network. I can't find anything I'm looking for, which that says here, it says fans have complained in the past that the current search feature on WWE Network has already had issues in narrowing down and organizing exactly what they are looking for. And that's a perfect way to word it, because even though it's there, you can't find it and you don't know how to get to it. You can't just search for something. A lot of times what you're looking for or the show you're looking for doesn't come up. And then you just have to try to think about what category that could be under and then go start searching through all that to try to find it. It's a pain in the ass. So that's not good news either, that the search feature already sucks dick on the network as it is. So now we're going to have to work even harder on Peacock. So anyway, it sounds like it is going to be a little bit of a growth period, a learning curve there to, get everything kind of streamlined up on the Peacock network. So it is what it is. Not a huge deal to me. For me personally, it doesn't sound like it's going to be that big of an inconvenience. So I'm not, going to be freaking out about it or whatever. Things like this are probably difficult to pull off. So I just hope there's no issue with doing Fastlane on that or having any issue with WrestleMania, because they launched the network back in 2014, right before WrestleMania 2. I'm like, man, this is awfully close to WrestleMania. Better hope everything goes off without a hitch here, because if you have problems, we could potentially miss that show, and you don't want that. So anyway, that's that, and that's the latest on the Peacock stuff, and I'll let you guys know as soon as I go on there and sign up and do all that, and I'll probably get on that this week so I can be subscribed and ready to rock. There's probably good shit on the Peacock, especially if it's like former NBC shows. There's probably Frasier's and shit on there. I'll totally use it. I don't watch much TV these days, though. So anyway, I never did a sound check earlier on. Okay, y'all can hear me, and you can see me, right? If you are here, hanging out, chilling, smash the like button for me. I would very much appreciate it. That would help out the channel a lot. Let's read some more chats here, and then we will start getting through the Raw results here, and we're going to open up with the title match. They started with Bobby Lashley and The Miz. Spencer, Broken Skull, worth the buy. If you can find it in the stores, hell yes, it's worth the buy. The problem is I was a little bit lazy. I know San Diego has these somewhere, but when I searched it, the only place I could really see that might have it was kind of a pain in the ass to get to, way, way, way downtown. Didn't want to bother with it. So, like an idiot, I ordered a case of it online and had to pay like $80 for it because I'm ordering it online. But I wanted it for a video that I did during the holidays, and to me it was worth the expense just to get it so I can taste it, do a tasting, feature it on the video. It was the video I did where I opened up the box of WCW trading cards right before Christmas or right after Christmas, whenever I did that. So that's why that was the point of me buying it. So it's very good though. If you find it in the stores, it's relatively inexpensive. It's no more expensive than any other sort of local IPA would be in terms of a case. So if you find it in the store, buy it. But ordering it online, probably not worth it, because you're going to be paying probably 5 times what you would in the store. $80 for beer. I've never spent that much before, unless it was a keg. Zane G, appreciate the $10, man. Good to see you. Not counting Raw, where Orton returned after getting his face burnt and returned to RKO Alexa Bliss. Wouldn't you think Orton would get retaliation on Alexa Bliss by now? I am going to mention this later on as we talk about this angle, because I am a bit surprised how rattled the Viper is. I mean, he even got mad at AJ for poking fun at somebody playing mind games. I'm like, bitch, calling the kettle black. Holy crap. You know, Randy Orton is like the master of these type of things. He loves to get in people's heads, and he's always, you know, tried to use, you know, sadistic and vicious and weird ass head games in a lot of his angles, and especially his more hardcore ones and stuff. So Randy Orton is as ruthless as anybody. So the fact that he is really being rattled here, and this shit is spooking him. You know, him barfing up the black ink and all this stuff that he's doing. So they've gotten in his head, Alexa and the Fiend, and it looks like he's coming soon. Did you see Alexa at the end here? She had that like Jack in the Box, and she's like, not yet. He's in there, y'all. She's going to wind that thing up. He's going to pop out looking all crazy. I can't wait to see that. So it's just a matter of time now, whether, you know, they book Orton for something at Fastlane, he appears there, or they do this on Raw. We're going to get on the other side of Fastlane before we see him, but I would assume the first week, and I think the second week at the very latest, we at least hear from the Fiend. And I've talked about the idea of maybe not seeing him physically until WrestleMania. That might be kind of cool because he is apparently going to have a new look. And if you save that unveiling for WrestleMania, it could be a whole new rebirth for the Fiend. And maybe we can, you know, do our best to kind of, you know, sweep under the rug the anal violation that took place in Saudi Arabia with him and Goldberg and that whole debacle. So I'm still open to that happening, but I think at some point, probably right after Fastlane, something's going to happen, some sort of a match or challenge or something is going to be made between these two, and we've got ourselves our WrestleMania match. Still don't know if it's going to be a Firefly Funhouse match or something a little bit more serious than that, but I hope it's going to be something cinematic, because the last time they were in the ring together at WrestleMania for the title, it kind of fell flat based at, you know, after how good their build was. So I don't want to see a repeat of that with these guys. And maybe that's another wrong that can be righted with these guys, who probably look back at that WrestleMania match when Randy Orton won the belt as a disappointment, and maybe they can fix that now. So we will see what's going on, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Fastlane is the WCW Thunder of pay-per-views. Yeah, Fastlane. I don't like it because we just don't need it. We just don't need it. Deshaun, good to see you, man. Appreciate the 3 reports. R Omega was pissed with last night's ending. I don't blame him, man. I mean, at least they kind of poked fun at it. I didn't get a chance to see what Moxley said until after we shut the stream off, so I was able to catch that video. And he said, Kenny Omega can't build a exploding ring worth of shit. That was kind of funny. I still haven't really read into why that ending was so lame, if it was purposely done or if part of the explosions didn't go off and something was botched. But if that's all they really had planned, I kind of don't blame them for being mad. But as we talked about last night, it was so ridiculously silly, and in a lot of ways it did ruin a really good kind of final story there of Eddie Kingston coming out and protecting Mox and everything. It was, for me anyway, it was more, I'm still laughing about it. It was more funny than bad, I think. Like I didn't find myself pissed or upset or really that disappointed after the show. We had a great time talking about the fizzled out shitty little Gilbert sparkler explosion that went off at the end of Revolution. It's only, you know, the crazy fans that are so uptight about fucking everything. They're the only ones really going on about that. And then the people are using this as ammunition to attack AEW fans, and then they get butthurt back and attack them, and then they're fucking fighting over something that was actually quite fucking funny. So I stay out of that bullshit. Of course, most of you know that. But in terms of how they hurt themselves out there, how they just really put their bodies on the line, and, you know, were bleeding buckets and took a lot of sick bumps for that match for those guys to kill themselves and that match be remembered for that horrible ending. Yeah, if I was Omega, I'd be a little bit pissed too, because I'm out there, you know, giving my body for this shit, and now none of that is going to be remembered at all. So I can see the frustration there for sure. But wow, crazy stuff last night. Unbelievable. Yeah, Alexa's good stuff, man. She still seems like she is the, you know, she is kind of in front of the Fiend at this point in terms of who is really feuding with Randy Orton. That's why I'm wondering. I'm like, don't rule out Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania. Shit, they could do anything. You never know. Tony Khan shouldn't buy pyrotechnics at Dollar Tree. That might have been where he got them. I mean, everything else looked fine. The other explosions didn't look too hokey or cheesy or fake or anything like that. And they've got good opening pyro. They got good pyro people. But for some reason, that ending just did not live up. And it looked so Bush League. Oh, my God. So awful. But then again, So hilarious. Well, sorry, Melissa. I'm a busy man, but hello to you. Glad you're here. I saw that homie Cal Austin belt going for $1,000. I still haven't even seen it. I got to go on there and look at it. We talked about that last night, and I meant to. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the custom belts. I talked about this last night too when they did the Broken Skull sessions with Taker, and Austin brought out that winged eagle, that purple. I didn't like it. I don't like all these like custom belts. It's just another way for WWE to squeeze all the nickels they can out of these fans. You know, it's like I brought up the comparison to like DVD sets, how there's like 5-year and 10-year and box sets and all these different anniversaries and re-release after re-release of movies that have been around for years as just more ways to get fans to buy more collectible shit. And I like to keep it simple with my, I collect a lot. I like to collect stuff, but I really like to keep it simple. And I could never get a custom belt on a wrestler unless maybe they made a Macho Man one. You give me a winged eagle with a cowboy hat on it, I might buy it. Maybe a Brett belt, but nah, I don't need a Taker belt. I don't need an Austin belt. And I don't need a Fiend belt. That leather weight belt that they were selling for $7,000 or whatever a couple years ago. Unreal. Anyway, do y'all want to talk about Raw? Raw was on tonight. That's why we're here. March 8th, 2021 edition of Raw. Show opens up with a backstage garage shot of the Hurt Business walking into the arena together. The very definition of sexy as they're all in their suits. Cedric, Shelton have got their red belts with them, and then Bobby Lashley as the centerpiece with the WWE title. He looks awesome. They are just power walking their way into the arena. Everybody get the fuck out of the way. Then we have The Miz coming out to open the show, and they did announce that the WWE title match would be opening the show as the first match, but Miz comes out first to cut a promo, and oh my God, is he being a little bitch. I mean, man, my God, what a little bitch. Hilarious. So he's just freaking out. He's all upset. He says, Shane pulled a fast one. It didn't say, it says in my contract that I had to defend the title, and I did that. And he means he did that by running away like the bitch that he is. And he's just all upset. And he said he was forced to defend the title with stomach cramps. Yeah, I know. It probably sucks to work on your period, but you got to do it anyway. It's not reason enough to stop the match and postpone it or anything like that. So sorry, Miz. And he just whines and bitches and vows to retain his title. So when this match was announced earlier on in the day, I saw nothing but negative comments on it. And I agree. I didn't really want to see it. And I also agree that it should not be, you should not automatically get a rematch as a former champion. You know, clearly we've seen that not in play here even recently. If anybody was really screwed, it was Drew McIntyre. Where was his night after rematch or week after rematch? Shouldn't technically he get the rematch ahead of The Miz? But no, because WWE is going to build Lashley and Drew at Mania. That was one thing that definitely became apparent to me tonight, is that will in fact be your match. It's been rumored. We kind of saw the writing on the wall there, but tonight all but confirmed it, that it's going to be Lashley and Drew McIntyre. So they have to wait for that. But, you know, to give The Miz an immediate title shot the week after, a lot of people were like, Jesus, they didn't want to see it. They thought it was dumb. I personally didn't mind, because in my head, I'm not thinking of any possible conceptual way that Miz scores some sort of wacky ass upset here and wins the title back. This is just going to be Bobby Lashley hurt locking the fuck out of him again. And that's fun to see. So I wasn't as mad, I guess I should say, as everybody else. Yes, I agree we didn't need to see it. Yes, I agree the rematch for The Miz doesn't really make that much sense when he was so easily taken care of last week. I mean, just manhandled. Bobby Lashley just had his way with The Miz. So why should he be granted a title shot? I get all of that, but this is Raw we're talking about. This is Raw that sucks every week for, you know, most of the 3 hours that it's on TV. We've seen worse. They've done dumber. And of all the things that Raw does that sucks, this is kind of like on the bottom of my list of things to complain about. So I really wasn't that upset about the match being made, provided, of course, on the condition that Miz taps out again, just like he did last week. And that's pretty much what happened. Bobby Lashley comes out after the Miz is whining, and Lashley has got this spectacular, the Hurt Business does, this spectacular kind of new entrance, complete with, the lights go out, and these cool effects on the video wall there. You get this lighting effect of this gold lightning shooting down and pyro going off. Very gold-like theme. I think, even help me, correct me if I'm wrong, did they get a little bit of a spice up on the music there? Still sounded like the same music, but they might have added a twist or a tweak in there somehow. Basically, a little bit new, spiced up presentation for Bobby Lashley, which I loved. He looks like $1 million with that title belt. The fact that this guy is 44 years old, blows my mind. It shouldn't blow my mind. He's always looked the same. Doesn't matter if you're looking at a picture of him from now or 2006. It's the same dude. But man, he's just he's a beast. He's a monster. I love seeing him with the title. I'm just very, very happy they went in this direction, at least temporarily. We'll see how long it lasts. But in the end, luckily, they didn't have Miz pull any chicanery shenanigans. He did have John Morrison, whose mullet game is on point, man. I got to say, that thing's coming along nicely. Even though he was there, he didn't do anything. He was pretty much a non-factor. Miz was completely useless, worthless, and offensiveless almost in this match. It did not take Lashley long to eventually lock the Hurt Lock in. And in a pretty much a picture-perfect carbon copy replay of last week, Miz immediately taps out to the Hurt Lock, and Bobby Lashley retains. He's done with the Miz. So you see, isn't that worth it? Instead of leaving that hanging, in the back of our minds, oh, Miz could turn up for a rematch, at least they just got it out of the way. Yeah, it didn't really need to happen, but it did. And in the end, we did see our champion beating the shit out of this guy at the end. And now there should be no question. There should be no match for the Miz now. If he gets another one, then yeah, I'm going to be joining the I'm pissed bandwagon. But, in terms of this, I was all right with it because I knew what the result was going to be. After that, I think we go to commercial. We come back and we've got Drew McIntyre backstage. I believe Drew was doing the sideways monitor watching thing during the title match there, and he cuts a pretty intense promo on Bobby Lashley. So I was wondering when McIntyre was going to decide to be mad at Lashley, because it is Lashley's fault that he lost the title, and I didn't understand. I can understand the first week why he wasn't out there. Coming out there and attacking Lashley, he was off TV to sell the injury. Fair enough. But then after that, why wasn't revenge on Bobby Lashley the number one thing on this guy's mind? And instead, he had that big, long, very, very good match last week against Sheamus that I thought was pretty much going to be the end of their deal, which part of me was happy about, but part of me also thought that based on everything that they've done together and how much, how good Sheamus has been in the past few months, he's been solid in the ring. He's had good matches, and he's just been a really solid performer. I thought that their feud at least warranted a pay-per-view match. But then after last week, I'm like, oh, that might be it, when Drew won pretty clean from what I remember. So anyway, McIntyre now is cutting the promo on Lashley. He's all pissed, and he says he wants to win the belt back and blah, blah, blah. But he can't get very far because he's attacked from behind by Sheamus. So this issue isn't over after all. And right after that, as soon as Sheamus attacked Drew, I was like, oh, there you go. They're going to do it at Fastlane. So I was like, okay, that probably is a good thing to do, because you don't want to do Lashley and Drew now. Both of these guys got to do something before WrestleMania and before they get to each other, assumingly. So as soon as Sheamus attacked Drew, I was like, okay, cool. They're going to do that at Fastlane. But then I think we go to commercial. We come back. Drew finds Adam Pearce, and he demands that he makes immediately a no disqualification match against Sheamus for that night. I'm like, oh, well, I thought they were going to do it at Fastlane, but instead they're going to be doing it here on Raw. So I didn't quite get it. But then we get Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus in the no DQ match about a segment later. They fight and they beat the shit out of each other just like they did last week. Pretty good match, really physical, really hard hitting, all that stuff. But then in the end, you do the spot on the outside of the ring where they both have picked up the steps from each corner, and they just basically slam them into each other. Sheamus falls backwards. Drew actually bumps over the barricade. Neither guy can answer the count. Neither guy can get back to their feet to continue the match, and there's a referee by Sheamus and a ref by Drew checking on them. Neither guy can continue, so they basically just call the match, and I'm like, oh, there you go. That is going to be your Fastlane match. So the finish of that all but guarantees they're going to make some sort of stip shit at Fastlane between McIntyre and Sheamus, you would think, right? Unless I'm crazy here. So they're probably going to do the blow off there. McIntyre will win that blow off, finish up and wrap up and tie up the feud there, and then probably go into WrestleMania to face Lashley. And if that's what, in fact, they're going to do, what does Lashley do? Does he work with somebody at Fastlane, or does he take the pay-per-view off and leave it to Roman and Daniel Bryan to be the main event of that thing? I don't know. So it feels like with The Miz out of the picture now and McIntyre and Sheamus looking like they're heading for their blow-off at the pay-per-view, Lashley either has to get a new opponent last minute for Fastlane, or maybe he's just not going to compete at all. Maybe he's just going to be on the show in some other form or fashion. I don't know. Not sure what it's going to be. If y'all have ideas, please tell me. Yeah, I don't, who's debating Bryan and Roman Reigns? Yeah, Roman is going to win. They didn't have him win the title and put him on this run for him to drop it at the pay-per-view before WrestleMania. No way. And that's another problem with these Fastlane shows. Whenever you have something that's pretty clearly obvious and is really going to be your moneymaker for WrestleMania, you know, you're almost, as a fan, you know you're going to get a great match out of Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns, but you know it's going to be Roman walking out of there unless WWE really just wants to swerve everybody and just play games this year and really, you know, shake up the works. They could randomly put the belt on Bryan, but no, it's going to be on Roman. It's going to be Roman and Edge. That's what they planted the seed for and built. But unfortunately, the way WWE's schedule is, that's why I hate these gimmick pay-per-views too, because you have these pay-per-views that are just sitting there in the way. Why even book them? You don't need them, and you're pretty much giving away the finishes of a lot of these matches because you know what they're going to do. So Fastlane's stupid, and we don't need it. Drew, I was going to ask you guys that. JJ Leg is suggesting cage match for Fastlane because it already feels like they've done some stuff. Tonight was no DQ, and I feel like they've done something else between the two of them as well. So if you're going to do a stipulation, what kind would it be? Old school cage match, I wouldn't even hate that idea. You know, because this is kind of an old school-ish type of feud. This is former friends that have turned on each other, and their matches are hard-hitting and they're physical. And there's been situations where, you know, winners haven't been declared properly. So if you put them in a cage, I guess you can kind of guarantee yourself a winner there. So maybe they could do that unless they... You know what I'd like to see that might be good? I don't know why I thought of this. Yeah, I think the only reason I thought about it is because it's an in-between. It's a WrestleMania, prior to WrestleMania pay-per-view. Austin and Triple H, the 3 stages of hell. What if they did that for Sheamus and McIntyre? Would that be too much, Sheamus and McIntyre? Last week, their match was really good. This week, I didn't see it praised as much. So if they did some sort of crazy, long 45-minute match between these guys at Fastlane, is that going to be something the fans even want to see? I'd be willing to give it a chance. I would. Based on Sheamus's work on TV. I mean, he's had some good matches and good chemistry with guys, and he's another guy that's up there, you know, in his 40s now and still, you know, being able to work at a high level. So I think the two of them might be able to pull something like that off, and it might be fun to do the Triple H Austin thing that they did back in 2001. I'd be into that. Give Morrison a championship. Oh, IC championship. Reign. Okay, sure. I'd be into that. He's on the wrong brand, though. We'll see. Where did we leave off? I kind of skipped ahead there because they didn't do the McIntyre-Sheamus match immediately after the backstage stuff that they did. We got some Braun Strowman stuff first. So Braun Strowman, WWE actually pre-advertised this for Monday Night Raw. They wanted to advertise this big segment between Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon where Braun Strowman is demanding an apology. Ooh. An apology, WrestleMania season, riveting stuff. I can't imagine why the ratings are down with compelling stories like this. The dude who tips over school buses and ambulances needs an apology. And that's what we're going to base our WrestleMania match on. I can literally think off the top of my head of like 6.5 million different better ways to get to that match than starting it off with Strowman wanting an apology. So stupid. But man, did it get weird. We'll talk about that in a minute. This just took some weird turns. So anyway, first thing we see is Braun walking to the ring backstage, cameras following him. He's approached by R-Truth, and help me fill in the blanks because I wasn't able to type fast enough, and on my streaming app, I can't rewind it. So I was only able to type what I could hear of R-Truth, and he talks about Bad Bunny, something star, and then he says, I want Braun Strowman to be my Monstar among men to help him win back the title because, of course, Bunny has got Priest kind of protecting that title for him, and R-Truth wants his baby back, so he's trying to get Strowman to kind of back him up, maybe help him win the belt, and Strowman's like, I don't need an apology from you, and R-Truth, because he said R-Truth says he wants to apologize to him for building an escape tunnel under the Thunderdome. That's awesome. Maybe it's a pot tunnel like on Weeds. He also said that he ruined Hornswoggle's wedding. I didn't know that R-Truth did that. That's a bummer. And he said a couple of other things that he apologized for that I wasn't able to catch. And at the very end, when Strowman was like, I don't need an apology from you, he's like, okay, forget it. Forget I was even here. I'm a fragment of your imagination. Oh my God, I love R-Truth. I am sick and damn tired of not being best friends with R-Truth. It's getting old, I tell you. Love that guy. He is a national damn treasure. Yeah, I'm not a huge Strowman fan, but Strowman is still just a big monster guy who just really looks like a monster. WWE at one time Oh, you're saying Shane and Braun. WWE one time did have me really enjoying Braun Strowman back when he was just destroying Roman Reigns on a weekly basis, and he was looking so powerful. And I remember thinking, damn, if WWE's willing to do this to their John Cena 2.0, which is what Roman was at the time, and all the fans hated him anyway, but WWE really treated him like he was the biggest star in the company, and to have Strowman manhandle him and beat him a few times was pretty impressive and surprising to me. And I thought Strowman was going to be a huge deal. I thought Braun Strowman was going to be pushed and presented as someone as strong or unbeatable as Brock Lesnar. And holy shit, did they go in the opposite direction there. But in terms of him physically, you know, and him being a big, intimidating guy, he's very good at doing that because this guy is an absolute beast. But that which makes the apology stuff even more absurd, and why I'm just like, why are they basing this whole angle on an apology? But we'll get to that because there was more going on there with those two guys. We had we had to go to the ring next. I'm sorry. After Strowman and R-Truth have their little interaction backstage, then we go to the ring. Braun's got to come out there to do the deal with Shane McMahon. So he cuts a promo very reminiscent of what The Miz was doing earlier. He was just whining, except he was whining in his Braun voice, you know, in a very deep voice. And I was like, yo, Braun, Miz already did this promo earlier. He was like, you did this, and blah, blah, blah. And again, you know, like he views Strowman as this big just monster, and he's just acting like a bitch. And so he demands, he goes, I'm not telling you, or I'm not asking you, I'm demanding that you come out here and give me an apology. So Shane comes out, music hits, comes around the ring, takes his time a little bit, but eventually gets inside the ring and just walks straight up to Strowman, gets right in his face and says, I apologize. And then like walks away and kind of looks back in the aisleway, walks a little further, gets up to the stage, looks back again, seems like he's going to say something else, and then doesn't, and then just goes to the backstage area. And you kind of thought that would be the end of it. After that is when we got the Sheamus versus McIntyre no DQ match, which I mentioned earlier on. And then we go backstage again to an AJ Styles promo where he's there with that new guy, Kevin Patrick. And AJ was talking about Randy Orton and The Fiend because we had just watched a recap package of what's been going on. They brought us up to speed on what's going on with that. So AJ starts kind of poking fun a little bit at Randy Orton being toyed with by The Fiend and Alexa Bliss, and that's when Randy Orton shows up, takes exception to AJ Styles finding humor in somebody messing with his mind, and challenges him to a match later on in the night, and that would be your main event. After that, we had a one-on-one between Shelton Benjamin and Xavier Woods, which means by WWE math, next week we're going to get Kofi Kingston versus Cedric Alexander, unless we got that last week. We might have got that last week. I forgot. Anyway, Xavier beats him here clean, I believe, with a small package, kind of catches Shelton in a quick little inside cradle there and pins him. Of course, Shelton is pissed, and obviously we're going to get some sort of a tag team title match either at Fastlane or on the kickoff. It's looking that way for New Day and Hurt Business again. After that, we go backstage because Matt Riddle is going to be having a match against Bisquick coming up, but they've got him at Gorilla, and they're interviewing him, and he's got a scooter. He's got one of those little scooters, razor scooters or whatever they are, and he's very concerned about his scooter because he has to go out for his match, but he doesn't want to just leave his scooter anywhere. And he asks the girl who's interviewing him, he's like, do you have any ideas of like where I can put my scooter? But then the New Day comes through the curtain returning from their match, and they say, oh, what's up, bro? And they're all happy. And New Day's very impressed with his scooter. And Matt Riddle asked them if they would babysit his scooter and gives the scooter to them. And Kofi takes it and says, get over here. And he grabs the scooter. So luckily for Riddle, his scooter is in absolutely excellent hands because you know for a fact that Kofi and Xavier are going to treat that scooter with respect and kindness because that's the type of dudes they are. So Riddle made a very, very good choice there, getting these guys to look over his scooter because I'm sure nothing will go wrong at all. Right after that, before we go to the match, well, actually, I'll talk about this in a minute. Let's go to the match next. Riddle taking on Bisquick. Riddle won with the bro Derek. If he lost to Bisquick, I would have been pissed. After that, or prior to that, they announced they did a little teaser for this coming Wednesday on NXT. William Regal, who was already advertised to make one big announcement this Wednesday, is now going to make two. So we're going to get two big announcements. Something is going to happen here, I'm assuming, with the women. A lot of people have been feeling that William Regal is going to be announcing the creation of NXT Women's Tag Team titles based off the wonky finish we saw last week and Adam Pearce bringing a Raw referee out there and all that, and Dakota and Raquel really being screwed, with Dakota not being the legal woman in the ring at the time of the finish. So that's the big rumor there. We could get that. And then there's two other big rumors out there that this could be, one of them being TakeOver. We do know that TakeOver is going to be Thursday, April 8th, I believe. And there's also been talk that it could be a 2-night event paired with their regular time slot the night before on USA on Wednesday. So maybe night 1 comes on television, night 2 on the cock. So if that's the case, that could be Regal's announcement, or it could be the move to Tuesdays. We don't know what it's going to be yet, because that's going to be another probable likelihood that NXT is going to be moving over to Tuesdays, and that is rumored to begin the Tuesday after WrestleMania. So if they are going to do this, they are going to want to tell the fans as soon as possible so they can be ready for that. So they don't get caught off guard, because if WWE gives themselves a full month to promote this, they are going to hammer it into everyone's skulls. So I think the earlier they do this is more WWE style, so that could be it. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to kayfabe the move. That's another thing. Like, if Regal is going to announce the move to Tuesdays, how do you kayfabe that? What's the reason behind that? I almost think that Regal's announcement is more likely to be the women's tag team titles that will crown the winner or crown the new champions at TakeOver, and it might be an announcement about TakeOver itself on April 8th, and they might combine that and make it a 2-night event. They might not. It might just be an announcement about TakeOver. Who knows? And then they might just, in terms of the move to Tuesdays, just announce that legit on their social media, issue a press release about the move, that sort of thing, without Regal or anything happening on TV. Other than the announcers just really plugging and promoting the move. So that's what my instinct tells me that it's probably going to be. But if you have any other ideas what the big announcement could be, the only other thing I can think of is that it's going to be Christian Cage. So it's one of those three. It's either the women's tags move to Tuesday's TakeOver or Christian. Place your bets in the chat over here. After that, we go backstage again. We thought we were done with this shit, but Shane McMahon is back there. Adam Pearce is with him. And Pearce kind of asks him, hey, when you were leaving the ring, you looked like you were going to say something else to Strowman. You want to fill me in? And Shane's like, damn, everybody's so nosy. He goes, but I do have something to say, and I want to say it in the ring. So go find Strowman, tell him to meet me in the ring. So they couldn't do this in one segment. They have to do it in 4. So then I think we go to a commercial again. We come back. Braun hits the ring. Shane comes out again, and he gets on the mic, and he acts like the mic is fucked up or something, and he changes it out. And he goes, let me just hold on, Braun. Let me just test this mic. And he's tapping it, and then he gets out of the ring and starts like walking away as he's testing the mic. And he starts walking up the stage, and what the shit was going on? It was almost as if he forgot his lines or something. He's literally saying nothing. He's acting weird as hell. He's, passively aggressively insulting Braun, saying things like, calling you things like stupid is just a horrendous word, an abhorrent word to use. And I would never call you stupid. I would never call you slow. And he was using all these different descriptive words to just, to describe Braun's stupidity, while saying he would never say that. I would never call you an idiot, an imbecile, a moron, or whatever. So he just went on and on about this. And I mentioned, a couple of weeks ago that Shane's tone in his speaking and when he's cutting promos has kind of changed a little bit. He's a little weird now, and I still don't really know what he's trying to do. What kind of a personality he's trying to portray here. It's very weird. He comes off as a fucking prick, and he doesn't really seem like he knows what he's saying. Like, he's literally making shit up as he goes. And there was long pauses there where he just didn't really say a lot. And he's like, oh, I can't even talk to you about this or whatever. So what the fuck? I mean, if they're doing all of this just to make a Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon match, what's the saying that's popular right now? It ain't that deep, folks. You don't need to dig this deep with this. This is a pretty simple situation here. Shane is in a position of authority or a power role in the company. He's doing some things, pulling some strings, making some matches that's pissing Braun off. Braun feels like he's being treated unfairly. He's pissed. Conflict. You butt heads. Shit boils over. You brawl. Bam. WrestleMania match is booked, and Shane can go flying off the top of the building or whatever he's going to do. Because if it is going to be Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon at WrestleMania, it's probably just done so Shane can fly off of something. He's going to be fucking Tommy Lee Jones Harrison Ford in The Fugitive when he dives off the waterfall with Tommy Lee Jones pointing the gun at him. I mean, that's probably what Shane's going to do. So I feel like this whole thing is designed to do that, but it has shades of Shane and Big Show, because Shane kind of used to poke fun at the Big Show for being dumb too. Remember, which way did he go? Which way, and all that shit. So it kind of reminds me of that a bit. And it feels like it's going to be another version of that. And Shane, this is a guy that's in his 50s. And I don't know, with these crazy ass bumps, this guy can still take at this point. But it feels like that's what they're doing. Braun Strowman, Shane McMahon. And it's all going to be built on the foundation of Shane insinuating in many ways that Braun Strowman is stupid and, trying to act like he's not, insulting him when he is. And Braun finally, after allowing Shane to talk for as long as he did, he finally had enough and chases Shane away. And Shane then runs through the curtain, runs to the backstage area in a waiting car. Strowman then comes through and the car leaves, only to be revealed that Shane is still there. And then he's like, what a dumbass or whatever. So Shane is just fucking with Braun. And I don't know why, like, what's the motivation here for Shane? In a kayfabe sense, if you're looking at this thing, logically, what's the motivation for Shane to pick on and bully Braun Strowman, which is kind of what he's doing in a verbal sense here. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you would want to poke a bear this size, this big, this strong, and this evil, this vicious. Maybe they're going to do a deal where Shane is maybe going a little crazy. Maybe Shane's losing his mind. Kind of seems like he is. He didn't sound like he knew what the hell he was talking about in the promo. Couldn't get his words together. Long dramatic pauses and all that stuff, and he's talking like a fool. So maybe he's just going a little nutso. Maybe we need Dr. Shelby up in here. Take a look at Shane's noodle. I don't know. What do y'all think? But anyway, it's going to be Shane and Braun probably, because that's what it looks like they're planting the seed for. But who's coming up with this stuff? Just horrible. Damn, we're getting to the end of Raw here. I thought I deleted some notes, but I didn't. We're near the end here. We had another title match, by the way. And that's what sucks about Raw. This show is getting universally a pretty poor grade from most of you, and I didn't give it a really good grade tonight as well. But it did have 2 championship matches on the show, with a world title and a tag team title. But still didn't really help the show, belt or no belts. And finally, Naomi and Lana did get that title match that they are owed against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. So that match was up next for the women's tag team titles. Reginald shows up with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Nia Jax seems like to have adopted Reginald after being shit-canned last week on SmackDown. She brings him out, gets on the mic, and says that she invited him, says that he's very cute. So now we had Reginald kind of obsessed with Sasha a little bit. Now maybe Nia Jax is going to get really, really frisky with Reginald. That could be kind of comical to watch. And because they tried this. Who did they do it with? Why can't I think of this? Not R-Truth. Fuck. Enzo, right? Right before he left. And they started that little weird deal with him and Nia Jax. So maybe something more there's more than meets the eye to this deal with Nia Jax and Reginald, but she's brought him out and he helped. He caused a lot of distractions during the match and allowed Nia Jax to powerbomb Lana and just pin her right to the mat and retain the titles. So Naomi and Lana did not win the titles, and I'm fine with that. It's another pairing. They're okay together, but I don't know. I'm not a huge Naomi fan. I don't know why. I don't feel the glow. I wish I did feel the glow. Naomi deserves a lot of credit for the time she's put in, how many years she's been there. They did try to give her a run with the title. I guess I'm not into her that much. She hit that rear end move I forgot what they call it. The rear end move when she jumps up and hits her with her ass. She hit that on Shayna Baszler and it looked like shit. Maybe it's the rear view, they call it, or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what Naomi needs to make me more into her character. Some people have suggested that she joins the Hurt Business, but I kind of rejected that only because I don't feel like she fits the attitude of the Hurt Business. She's way too colorful and way too flashy, and she doesn't come off like a tough chick like Shayna Baszler does. Not that that can't change. And I think maybe that's what Naomi needs. Maybe not only does she need a look or gimmick change, she needs an attitude change. And maybe she can come out there being a little bit more badass and use her athleticism to her, advantage, because she can do some pretty cool stuff in there, but I'm just not into the character at all, which sucks because I like Naomi. I want to like her more. I just don't. So I don't see, the Hurt Business would be interesting, but she'd have to undergo quite the big transformation, I think, to pull something like that off. And I really don't have a desire to see her with Lana. in a team. They're not that great together. I'm kind of glad they lost here, and both of these women hopefully can go on and do other stuff, bigger and better stuff. And the WWE can start getting me to care about Naomi, because as of right now, I just kind of don't. After that, we cut backstage. Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke promo. I think they're talking about Charlotte's challenge to Asuka last week. And I want to apologize. Last week in the review, during the Charlotte promo, I was doing stuff. I was not paying attention to what she was saying. I had other stuff going on. I was preparing for the stream, and I just wasn't listening. I didn't realize that she challenged Asuka at WrestleMania. They showed the replay of poor Asuka's chiclets getting knocked out, which still gives me the heebie-jeebies. But I didn't even realize that Charlotte made that challenge. So we really didn't talk about it last week. And now I guess Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke were talking about Charlotte getting that opportunity. And they're like, hey, we've put our time in. We've worked hard. We've busted our asses. We deserve, opportunities too. And that's when Charlotte shows up. And she said basically like, yeah, you're right. Why don't you prove it to me or show me what you can do? I don't know why Charlotte's in charge of any of this, but it does look like they're still trying to push the possibility of Charlotte taking on Asuka. The commentary team even says if Charlotte faces Asuka, so clearly something's going to have to happen for Charlotte to earn this shot. And I've been hoping for months that Rhea Ripley would get involved here somehow. And I was hoping she would already be back. Ripley would. She'd be in the Rumble. She'd be on TV. I was hoping she'd win the Rumble or win the Elimination Chamber and get an opportunity to face Charlotte or Asuka for the title. Maybe Charlotte then wins the title prior to WrestleMania, and we get that Rhea Ripley and Charlotte rematch from last year. But this time Ripley goes over. I was hoping we would get to that. They're still running vignettes for Ripley. It doesn't seem, unless they bring her out the night after Fastlane, I don't know if there's really a chance to get Ripley and Charlotte this year. It's starting to feel less and less likely with each passing hour, but maybe they could still do that. Otherwise, it's probably going to be Charlotte and Asuka again, which I would like to see, because Charlotte and Asuka on a WrestleMania stage, it was great the last time they did it. It was a great match. The only problem is, the fans didn't like who won. But I at least appreciated the match. And I told everybody, Asuka is not dead. Asuka was supposed to quit the business that night. Remember? She should those are her two options after that match with Charlotte. Two options Asuka had. Number one, go back to NXT. Number two, quit the business after losing a championship match at WrestleMania for God knows what kind of payday and a high-profile spot match on the card. Quit the business. That's what they said. And I was like, nah, she's going to be fine. She's going to be fine. Here we are a couple of years later, Raw Women's Champion heading into WrestleMania. Told you. Anyway, we'll see if they do that again, though I'm not confident about our Asuka. I really like Asuka. If she faces Charlotte, I absolutely will be rooting for Asuka, but I'm not sure if that'll be the case. I'm hoping that we get additional components here. We could do a triple threat, because over on the SmackDown side, I'm sure it's going to be and remain Sasha and Bianca. If they throw Carmella into that, I'm going to be pissed. So we're probably going to get that straight one-on-one match between those two women on the SmackDown side. So on the Raw side, you could toss in a Rhea Ripley last minute or something like that and make this thing a triple threat in a way to perhaps protect Asuka if she loses or something. I don't know, but either way, we talked about this before Charlotte even returned to TV, that if you think Charlotte is going to be involved in a non-championship match at WrestleMania, you are crazy. She will not face anybody else. She will either be champion at WrestleMania or be challenging for a title at WrestleMania, because that's what Charlotte does. She's like the fucking Hogan of the 80s right now. So that'll be the case. And once we find out exactly what they're going to do, then I can really, tell you guys what I hope to see out of that. But as of right now, we really still don't know. And what do you guys think? Can we get it? Can we shoehorn Ripley in there last minute? Or are we just best to wait and she debuts after Mania or something like that? Maybe she's the first challenger for Charlotte or Asuka on the other side of WrestleMania, depending on who wins. But I'd be disappointed for Rhea Ripley if they didn't get her in there to do a WrestleMania match, because remember last year when she was defending the NXT title against Charlotte, and prior to COVID really hitting and WrestleMania being canceled, they did that whole piece with Ripley going to Raymond James Stadium and standing in the middle of it and looking around and, wow, what's it going to be like when I come out here and face Charlotte? And I can't wait to feel the crowd and feel the energy. And this is such a dream come true for me. And here they are back there after having to cancel that event. 1 year later, they're back there. They have a chance to give her that, and they're not even going to have her on the card? Come on, man. So I don't know. I just think they got to get Ripley involved here. Otherwise, what the F are you doing? WWE, for fuck's sake. Anyway, mini rant there on the Rhea Ripley situation. Thank you, Monkey Wrenches, for handling some deleted comments there. Appreciate that. Yeah, homie cow, why you got to write 45 things? Idiots. All right. Okay, cool. I didn't miss any super dupers. I don't know, Mike. Good question on Becky. Don't know when she's coming back. Don't know when and if. Or we talked about the possibility of her turning up by Mania. She could. And if she showed up to get in the middle of that, that could be interesting. Maybe that's why they're stalling. Because if it was like, because look at it like this. If it was going to be just Charlotte and Asuka, and that's what WWE in their head knows they're going with, there's really not much of a reason to stretch that out, really. You can probably just make that known. So, maybe they're kind of stalling here to, give a surprise, add a Becky, add a Ripley. Don't know. Would at least, at the very, very least, like to see Becky either appear at WrestleMania in some form, on screen, backstage, run in, or maybe even the next night on Raw. That might be a better place. The next night on Raw needs to have a couple of surprises, or at least a return. We get that every year. Even if it's a letdown, it's still some sort of a return. Somebody usually comes back. So Becky coming back the night after, I could see that, but I could also see her maybe, turning up somewhere on the show. Maybe after you do the championship match, and unless they switch Becky, they could move her to SmackDown, I suppose, if they wanted to in some weird-ass way. So maybe on the Raw side, whatever the match is, whoever wins the title, if it's Charlotte who wins the title, or over on SmackDown, if it's Bianca who wins the title or Sasha retains, when either one of these ladies is having like a post-match interview backstage with the title celebrating their victory, maybe Becky comes into frame and just hello, and that's how she's back. And she goes, hey, I'm back. And by the way, that thing that you got right there, I want a shot at that. Nice to see you, and then kind of leaves. Would draw a big, reaction, I think, from the audience live and stuff. So maybe something like that for the Baxters. Otherwise, I don't know what condition she's in physically, if she's working out, whatever they're doing with Becky. If they are going to bring her back, I would imagine they're keeping it tight-lipped. So I don't know. I'm just not the right person to ask. But if she does come back, that would be fun. What did JJ Legs say that was on? That was genius? Put Naomi on SmackDown when Jimmy comes back. Have her and the Usos be with Roman and boom. There's a nice little stable there. We actually talked about that. I think we gave that idea for Naomi because she's married to Jimmy, of course, and if you can get them together, that would be a good opportunity too for Naomi to change up that look. She looks like a highlighter. It looks like you could pop the top and sniff her and you get a nice little buzz off of her. So I think she needs a complete kind of overhaul. I'm just not into the glow. So sorry to say that, but I'm not. And if she did that and she kind of became, I don't feel like she fit in the Hurt Business really, but that could be a little bit better. That could be something that could be sparked maybe on a Talking Smack. Of course, she's not on Talking Smack. You'd have to get her to SmackDown first and then have her on Talking Smack to where she, kind of cross paths with Paul Heyman. And maybe he talks about her. Maybe he says some of the same things I'm saying now. Naomi, you're great. You put your time in. You're a good worker. You're athletic. You have a lot of good attributes, but there's something missing. There's something there not connecting. You are not really viewed as a top tier talent or a main eventer, and you should be because of your experience and your ability and things like that. You just need to bring that out of you. All of your ability as a wrestler, all that stuff is still inside. So it's time to let it out. And maybe you should think about taking me up as your advocate and things like that. Or maybe he can just be like, do the thing where he pulls the business card out of his pocket. Call me. And then he leaves or something. Just plant a little seed there and then kind of go into that. Would love that. Would absolutely love that. I wish I could read that. Well, I guess I can. Will Rally Sport. Rally. Love your live streams. Thank you very much for that. Love Alexa Bliss character work. So good, isn't she? Yes, she is. Lana better in the ring than 1 year ago. Lana is growing on a lot of people. I shouldn't give Lana any shit. She has gotten better, and she has... she is no longer that kind of like detestable character. Like every time Lana came out, as beautiful as she is, every time she came out, it's like, oh God, Lana, but it's like, she's kind of, she's worked, it looks like they're presenting her as somebody that actually is trying to do better and trying to get better, even though, she's probably one of the weakest on the roster in terms of what she can really do in the ring. She really does resemble more of a diva division than a women's wrestler division, but maybe Lana can continue to get better, and maybe that can change. And much like Naomi, maybe Lana will get a little attitude change. She'll start being more aggressive in months to come and maybe win a few matches clean, and she doesn't look like such a piece of shit underdog anymore. they could maybe do that with her. Or she can leave, go join Miro in AEW and beat the shit out of Penelope Ford or something. We'll see. After the Mandy and Dana promo backstage, we are set for our main event. Randy Orton taking on AJ Styles in a WrestleMania rematch from a couple of years back. Match is good. I was kind of, at that point, I'm setting up the stream. I'm getting the light on. I'm plugging in my mic. I'm, setting up my monitor. So I'm just kind of eyeballing the match. I'm just waiting for the end because, Alexa Bliss is going to come out and do something to cost Orton the match. That's exactly what happened. Alexa appears on the screen. Like I said earlier, she's got that Jack in the Box thing, and she's winding it up, and she kind of puts her hand over it, and she goes, "Not yet." So, we know we're waiting for the big reveal of the Fiend here at some point, and that's when the lights start flickering in the ring. I think some pyro goes off, and then Randy Orton starts spitting up that black ooze again, and he's freaking out, and he's crawling around on the mat. That allows AJ to kind of recover. He goes to the outside of the ring on the apron, jumps up, nails Randy Orton with the phenomenal forearm for the win, gets the victory, and Randy Orton continues to convulse and spit up the shit and all of that, and Alexa Bliss is laughing, and she's doing all her shit as the show goes off the air. So more teasing there, and Randy Orton is really getting lit up here by these two, and it's really surprising how vulnerable the Viper seems to be here. The fact that he can't seem to get a handle on the situation. He hasn't been able to get his hands on Alexa Bliss or the Fiend. I mean, after what he did to him, burning him up, now they are really messing with Randy Orton's mind, where he's starting to lose it a little bit. He was talking to himself last week. They are just getting the better of him every single week. So we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast here, when we think we could see the Fiend. At some point, the match for WrestleMania is going to have to be made, but we also have this really strong issue that's still building and still exists between Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss. He seems a bit more pissed at her right now than he does at the Fiend. He did already RKO her. I mean, could we really see Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss? How crazy would that be if they actually booked that for WrestleMania, and the Fiend just appears in the match and helps Alexa Bliss beat him, or something like that? It feels like that's an option. It feels like that's not even a completely ridiculous possibility. Based on what we're seeing here, they could maybe even do that, but I don't think so. I think eventually, probably right after Fastlane, we will maybe not see the Fiend, but at least hear from him. And I really like the idea of holding off his unveiling until WrestleMania. Make the match on TV, whatever gimmick match, stipulation match. I think it's probably best if it's a cinematic, because when they did try to do this match in the ring a few years back, when Bray had the title and he passed it to Randy, that match fell flat. Even though they tried some effects, they did the thing, there was like maggots crawling in the ring or whatever they tried with the video wall, or they basically made the ring like a canvas and played some video of worms and shit. That was all they did, and it just wasn't very good, and it fell extremely flat. So they got a chance now to make up for that. John Cena and the Fiend had a fucking bonkers ass funhouse match last year. I can't see Randy Orton and the Fiend's match this year being as comedic as that. This seems like it's going to be something a little darker, something that more resembles the Boneyard match more than the funhouse match from last year. And that could be the first time we see the Fiend. I think that might be nice to hold off his unveiling until WrestleMania, and then Alexa Bliss can come out with a Jack in the Box and wind it up and boom and fireworks or whatever, and there he is, the new look Bray Wyatt, and then you do your match cinematically between those two, I guess. But we'll find out. I think right after Fastlane, pretty much that's going to be the turning point. Once we get on the other side of that stupid pay-per-view that's just standing in our way, then you should really start thinking about immediately being able to see the Fiend on TV, or at least finding out what the match with Orton is going to be. So that should be coming in the next few weeks, and you got to wonder if Randy Orton will eventually get his hands on Alexa Bliss again, because it feels like she's owed another RKO by now. I know he hit her with one, but what they've been doing to Randy Orton lately, I think she needs another one, maybe on the floor this time. Give it to her on the outside of the ring. Give it to her on the steps. Light her ass on fire. I don't know. But Randy Orton's going to have to get some sort of a revenge against Alexa Bliss, which might be a good way to draw out the Fiend. If he can finally corner Alexa Bliss in the ring, or get her, or grab her by the hair and hold her in the ring, like, come out right now, Fiend, or it's going to be, for Alexa. And then he has no choice, because we saw what happened last time he did that. Was it Orton that did that? And the Fiend did show up and he's like, give her back. And Orton was holding her. So they could do something like that, where Randy Orton finally gets her, maybe ties her to a chair, like Austin when he tied Scott Hall to the chair and threw him in the freezer or whatever. Do something like that, where she's she's kind of in jeopardy there, and that's going to have to draw the Fiend out of hiding. They could do that. I don't know. Yeah, well, you might care about the Fiend after we see him. I mean, they've been putting a lot into this. I mean, this Randy Orton feud and angle has gone on a long time. They've been pretty wacky with it, and I think it's going to be good stuff. Yeah, you could argue that it was started too early because it has been going on for a while, but it'll be blown off, I should say, at WrestleMania. Yeah, Joey's Adventures, Bray coming back. I think it's got to be after Fastlane, or just hold it off. Like I said, hold it off and let us see what he looks like at Mania, and then what night of the pay-per-view will this fall on? You got to think about that. I'm assuming because last year they did the 2 title matches as your main events, right, of each respective night. That's really the only fair way to do it. You can't have, one of them be on the undercard of either night, especially when it's a 2-night event. So I'm assuming whoever Lashley faces, Lashley and Drew, will be night 1, because Drew was night 2 last year against Brock. So I think Drew Lashley will be night 1. Roman and Edge will be night 2. I think last year the Funhouse was night 1. I can't remember totally, though. I think the Firefly Funhouse was on night 1. And then maybe the Boneyard was on night 2, if I remember right. So I think Randy Orton and The Fiend should probably also be on night 2. I'd put that on night 2. And then on night 1 with Lashley and Drew, I don't know, maybe Big E and Apollo or something. Shane and Strowman might be a good one to put there as well. Maybe the women's title match. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all those matches come together and how many of them there will be. Because there's going to be a lot. And AJ Styles, that's another thing we got to talk about WrestleMania. There's a lot of big star power names kind of missing from this thing this year, which is not a bad thing. Because you got to remember, in a lot of recent years, one of the fans' biggest complaints is, I don't understand why WWE is always relying on stars of the past. It's always Triple H and Brock and Undertaker and these guys having matches. They're all, at least for right now, all really materially absent from this WrestleMania. Undertaker's not going to be there unless he does an in-ring segment nostalgia thing or something like that. And Brock is not even currently under contract, I don't think, to WWE. And there's been no evidence at all that he's going to be coming in. So if I'm a betting man, I think Brock is sitting this one out and he'll be back, which I think is a good move, because if you bring him back now, you're shoehorning him. What is he doing? I mean, unless he's facing Lashley, but man, you're really fast tracking that. That's something you can save. The immediate threat to Lashley is the former champion, Drew McIntyre. So you get through that, and then maybe Brock, we can talk Brock again come summer, because SummerSlam might be in an arena in another state other than Florida. There's a very good chance that's going to happen. So that might be a good chance to bring Brock back. So I'd hold him off for that. Goldberg is another name. He had a title match at Royal Rumble, and he's contractually obligated to do some other matches, but please, WWE, do not bring this fool in to be in any high-profile matches. I don't want to see it. I'm totally open to Goldberg being there in a fun backstage legend segment, maybe some fun nostalgia shit in the ring where he spears somebody or beats somebody up alongside another WWE legend. Maybe Austin shows up at Mania, and Austin and Goldberg are in the ring with 2 schmucks. Who's the annoying baby faces or the annoying heels that get their ass kicked? Right now, that's kind of Miz and Morrison, but I think Bunny and Priest are going to have their number. So what if you get Austin and Goldberg in the ring, and I don't know, 2 guys come out with a mic and start talking shit, and the 2 of them just beat the hell out of each other. We get a spear, we get a stunner. All that could be a lot of fun. I'd be totally open to seeing Goldberg involved in that, but in terms of a high-profile match, I don't want him anywhere near this wrestling card, other than just appearing, because legends usually do show up at WrestleMania, even if it's just for a minute in some sort of a segment. And the other big name for WrestleMania potentially is Triple H. And a lot of people have been speculating that he could potentially come back and work against AJ Styles at WrestleMania, and that would be a pretty big match, and that would make sense because AJ Styles, if you haven't noticed in the past few months on TV, he's been really protected. And hell, he got a victory tonight over the Viper, Randy Orton, with the phenomenal forearm. So AJ is still, even though he's kind of quietly existing on the Raw roster, he's a guy that hasn't been losing, hasn't been punked out. He's remained strong. He's winning his matches, and if he's not, it's with weird circumstances. He's got Omos with him, who's kind of coming into his own now and getting comfortable in that role. And if you're going to put AJ in a high-profile match at WrestleMania, who do you really put him with? Who does he really work with that could be like something that would look good on the marquee? And a lot of people say Triple H. That would be an interesting match. And I'm always not a huge fan of Triple H getting back in the ring, sucking up a WrestleMania payday or whatever. But there's some possibilities there that I think could be good. Because AJ will give anybody a good match, and Triple H is probably in just good enough physical shape to still have one or two good matches if he works with the right person. And I'm sure he'll get himself in remarkable shape for the match as well. So if they did AJ and Triple H, I'd be somewhat intrigued on that, because I think there would be some interesting things they could bring up in the promos. I think Triple H, because Triple H is, edgy and he likes to say shit. He'll probably bring up TNA and, how he never came here because you would have never succeeded. You just worked in that 6-sided ring fucking circus down there in Tennessee or whatever. So, or in Florida, he could go on and on about that and really kind of insult AJ Styles' track record, where he's been and all the experience that he's had. And, on the surface, if they were to book that match, I feel like AJ would go over. So when I pulled all those things together, I'm like, okay, if Triple H came back, gave AJ Styles a good match and put him over, then I'd be in favor of him coming back and having a match. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't use it as ammunition to say, oh, WrestleMania is relying on big stars. No, there's an actual purpose here. This is an interesting match. And if he puts AJ over, that's a big time match between two big Hall of Famers. AJ and Triple H have both put more than 2 decades into wrestling, and these are two big pros that have never really collided face to face. This would have been an excellent match to see 10 years ago, and us getting a chance to still possibly see it, I wouldn't be against it. So I think Triple H is probably the most likely of those to get involved. Other than that, I can't think of any other big names that would really come back to have a match, from the past. Brock and Goldberg and Triple H are really the only ones that I could think of. What do y'all think? AJ versus Goldberg, man, Kevin, that worries me because they'll put Goldberg over. I think AJ and Triple H would be so much better. I think the promos would be better. Like, I just don't like who Goldberg is, his personality. He's just too one-dimensional. He's Mr. Tough Guy who already got punked out once by Jericho backstage, and I would pay such good money to watch Matt Riddle beat the fuck out of him. He just comes off as a fucking snot, asshole. I don't know why I get this bug up my ass about Goldberg right now. I watched his little piece, his Untold, on his streak. Even in that, he's coming off like a douche. And Goldberg, I accepted him in the 2016 run. And I was like, okay, kind of feels better. And I was never a big Goldberg fan, but I never really disliked the guy. I just don't like his attitude. I don't know why. He's just abrasive. He comes off as somebody I don't want anything to do with. So I really hope it's Triple H and AJ, because I think their promos, there would be more substance to them. And like I said, Goldberg just doesn't say a whole lot. AJ could completely tell the truth on the mic for 5 minutes, and all Goldberg would say, how about if I just rip your face off? And I'm like, no, you can also say something back if you want, Goldberg, but it's kind of not. Yeah, he is. He's a big mark for himself, and that's not entirely his fault, because you have to remember, too, Goldberg, when he came in and he was very young, and he was pushed so quickly without much. I shouldn't say young. Green is a better word. Greenberg, remember? Coming in with the limited experience that he had, and then coming in, he's not getting a very good representation of what wrestling is from the locker room that he was in. This is a guy that's never been in a backstage environment or worked for any wrestling promotion ever, and the first one that he's coming into is filled with the fucking politics and the bullshit of Hogan and the NWO and Savage and all these guys backstage. There's nobody in charge. There's no Vince. Yeah, you have Bischoff there, but he's, he plays both sides of every coin. There's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of red tape. Nobody knows which way is up. Nobody's in charge. Nobody has the final say. Inmates are running the asylum. Fucking Kevin Nash had the damn book around that time. So Goldberg watches what all these other guys do, with Scott Hall refusing to do finishes and shit, and Hogan, well, that doesn't work for me, brother. And then he starts believing his own bullshit. And that's when you start having these problems like he did with Jericho that took all those years to boil over in WWE. Didn't want to work with him because he's too fucking stupid to realize that there's money in this for the way they've been building it up, and to book a pay-per-view match for Goldberg to steamroll Jericho and beat him. And Goldberg is too dumb to realize how good that's going to be because he's too concerned about his character persona and doesn't think Jericho's worthy enough, when Jericho could wrestle circles around that motherfucker. He should be wanting to work with Jericho so he could learn a thing or two. But instead he was a dick, but he only really was that way because of who he was surrounded by and his surroundings. And he was only taking cues and running by the examples that are laying before him in WCW. If he would have came into WWE in 98 instead of WCW, you know, that shit wouldn't have flown. Undertaker would have pulled him aside and said, look, motherfucker, you ain't going to be this way. You know, they would have set him straight and nipped that shit in the bud immediately. Between Undertaker and Vince and everybody else there was like, you know, don't pull that shit in here. That ain't the way we roll. And you would be ousted from the locker room. You would have heat. Your push would probably suffer. And where in WCW, it wasn't like that. So if he tried to bring that shit into a WWE locker room in the Attitude Era, you know, he wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds because the Undertaker would have had him changing in the broom closet. So it's not totally his fault that he turned out to be that way because he was only, he was only going by the example Hogan was setting and guys surrounding Hogan was setting in that clusterfuck that was WCW during the time he was there. So, yeah, and he just laughs and shit. So, yeah, this isn't going to be a shit on Goldberg stream because he's probably watching. I don't want him to show up at my house and beat the shit out of me. Actually, I might be able to take him. If Jericho took him, I can take him. I'm kidding. He'd kill me. But, yeah. He's just not my favorite guy. I just never really cared much about Goldberg, like, at all. So, and it made it even worse. And a lot of my feelings towards Goldberg, like I said, aren't his fault. Like the stuff that happened earlier on in WCW and also WWE's portrayal of him. It's not Goldberg's fault that they wanted to put him over the Fiend in Saudi Arabia, you know? Like, that's what WWE wanted to do. That's what they thought was going to make the better WrestleMania match, and it was ridiculous, and it pissed me off. It's not necessarily on Goldberg, but WWE didn't help my attitude any by when they do bring him in, instead of bringing him in as a fun nostalgia, act, or having a big match, or maybe a quick little run with the title, for closure or something like that. Instead, they're still bringing this guy back in 2021 and putting him in the ring in a main event of one of your big 5 pay-per-views against your champion. No. Even though the guy keeps himself in phenomenal shape for somebody his age, still, no, God, no. But we probably haven't seen the last of William. I know, right, Mike? Us bald dudes are supposed to stick together. If Goldberg, if I ever meet Goldberg, I'll totally pretend like I'm his best friend. So please don't tell on me that I was giving him shit. Yeah, he stiffed Hennig every time they got in the ring. He kicked Bret Hart's head off, gave him a concussion, led to his retirement, and he damn near killed The Undertaker in Saudi Arabia. He already killed The Fiend. He's kill The Undertaker too? Ay. Yeah, the nostalgia run has run its course. You're right. They did that. I didn't even totally mind when the match happened with Brock at Survivor Series in 2016, and he ran down Brock. It was shocking. I'm like, oh, we needed a good shock. Wrestling needed a shot in the arm. That's good. He came back. He did not overstay his welcome. He came close to it. A lot of fans didn't like the Kevin Owens match, but that was done in order to come full circle with him and Brock. And him and Brock had a much better match at WrestleMania. They did it Survivor Series, went about 4 or 5 minutes, but it was still good. Brock got the win back, and all of that I was fine with. And then Goldberg came out the next night, had a very nice goodbye. I felt like all was forgiven in my mind. I'm like, you know what? Okay, Goldberg's doing the cool thing here. He really wants to come back and show and be an example for his son, show his son what he used to do. He came back a lot for him. He took pride in the superhero stuff, kind of like how Bret Hart did. And he spoke from the heart that night, even got on the fans' cases. Hey, I'd appreciate it if you give me my time. And I like that. I like it. I like that he basically told him to shut the fuck up. So when he did all that, and even his son in the really creepy moment where he took his shirt off and was flexing and stuff, it was heartwarming. I like to see that. And it was like, okay, best of luck, Goldberg. Thanks for coming back. And I feel like I have closure on the Goldberg character now, because he didn't leave under the best of terms in 2004, booed right out of Madison Square Garden and stunned out of Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 20. And his run in WWE was filled with hard feelings, maybe bad booking with the Triple H stuff. So for him to come back and do that little run from November to WrestleMania in 16 and 17 was nice to see. And I didn't hate it. But then WWE brought him back, and then brought him back again, and then brought him back again, and then brought him back again, and then put the title on him again. That's when I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this fucking guy. No more spear. No more none of that. It's over. Let's move on. Oh, yeah. Hogan's definitely, lost in less than 30 matches in his whole career. I can believe that. He was undefeated for years as champion in WWE, and then by the time he was losing matches, his schedule had been to the point where he was only coming back every now and then, and he lost a good chunk of those in WCW. But him and John Cena have just an unbelievable record. Winning percentage wise, I'm not sure. I want to say Cena's got a better winning percentage. He might have more losses than Hogan, but he might still have a better winning percentage, I think, because Cena wrestled a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of people, I don't even know if Triple H buried him. I think that they just made a big mistake. You know, a burial to me is Triple H and pedigreeing him and pitting him in the middle of the ring or whatever. You know, they did that deal at the Elimination Chamber with sledgehammers involved, and he's bloodied and handcuffed and a mess. And yes, granted, Goldberg should have won the title that night. And then they did it again the next month, but by then it really felt like it was too little too late. And then he dropped the belt just a couple of months later. So I definitely would have done the Elimination Chamber differently. And I think it harmed Goldberg, but I don't think it buried him. Because it just wasn't a burying type of scenario. You hit me, hit anybody with a sledge, hit Brock with a sledgehammer, you can probably pin him. So I just didn't like the way they did it. I thought it was a bad decision. And then he dropped the belt. And again, I think when he, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember for sure. I want to say it was like Armageddon. He dropped the belt, but I think it was in a triple threat situation. So I don't even think he took the pin in the title loss. So he was, you know, it's not like they were treating him like he was a jobber or anything. I think they treated Goldberg, even during that shitty run he had originally, I still think they treated him better than they treated Sting when he came in. At least they gave him the belt. At least they had him beat Triple H. Even if it was a month late, he still did it. Still jackhammered him and pinned him clean in the middle of the ring. So I'm not sure if I use burial. I just use like stupidity. I think it was WWE just did a really bad job of booking that angle the way it should have gone. And he should have murdered everybody in that Elimination Chamber at SummerSlam that year. Trey, you never know. That's always still been in the back of my mind. That was one of my favorite SummerSlam matches of all time, was Brock Lesnar and John Cena at SummerSlam 2014. And you have to wonder if maybe John Cena still gets his receipt back from that. If maybe still there's time to do one more John Cena and Brock Lesnar match at some point. Maybe Cena beats him. I mean, like, if Brock Lesnar, you know, ever has a last match, I wouldn't want Cena to be the one to do it. I think somebody else, you know, a main roster guy should beat him and send him on his way. But you could do a deal if Cena or Brock does have their last match. It might be against the other. You know, if Cena has one more match, maybe he chooses Brock. And that's okay. It's not always the right answer to say, oh, it should be against a young guy. Because I'm happy that Shawn Michaels retired against The Undertaker. I'm happy that Ric Flair retired against Shawn Michaels. That was great. That was what needed to happen. I didn't want Ric Flair to retire against fucking JBL. I want him to retire against Shawn Michaels. So I'm okay with, you know, legends choosing to do that. And maybe, you know, with the history that spanned so many years between Cena and Brock, maybe one of them having their retirement match against the other would seem possible. And I'd be into the idea. I wouldn't reject it. Fans would, just instinctively, because they reject everything. But, you know, if you think it through, I wouldn't reject it. I think it'd be all right. Robert Kane's very good. Broken Skull IPA is wonderful. Bought a case of it during the holidays, and I've only got a few left. There's a couple in my fridge and a couple other ones laying around from the case that I bought. Yeah, that was a surprising match when Brock, that was 2012, right? When Brock returned, they did the Extreme Rules match between him and Cena. And that was a pretty bloody, brutal affair as well. And Cena beat Brock. I could not believe that. I remember just being amazed at that, but it made a lot of sense. John isn't going to drop the match to The Rock at Mania and then turn around and drop a match to Brock again the next month. And I was so surprised they built that match right away. Brock came out to one of the biggest pops we've ever seen night after WrestleMania, F5's John Cena. And then they do the match right away. I thought they were going to build for like SummerSlam or something. They did it like right away. And it was almost like WWE's way of making sure Brock is going to do business. Okay, you left us high and dry in 2004. When you left, you know, we put so much into you. We can't risk you coming back and doing that again. So you're going to have to put some motherfuckers over. And that's what he did. You know, he put Cena over in his first match and then went on to beat Triple H. And then what? The next year, put Triple H over. So they made sure that Brock, before he became the monster and he beat the streak and he went on that tear, he was there for 2 years until WWE, I think, was comfortable making him that legitimately credible guy, which was a great decision. You know, him beating the streak and then him just being unstoppable like that. Brock was one of my favorite people on TV. I loved him as an attraction. And it felt real. It felt good to see him there. Wow, this guy went and won the UFC title, and now he's here kicking everybody's ass. But he had to do some jobs first. And Cena, that was a brutal match, and he beat the shit out of Cena the whole time. It was basically a squash until Cena made his comeback, gave him the FU on the steps, I think, and pinned him like on the steps and won. And I think even that night, too, I remember Cena cutting a promo after the match saying goodbye to the fans, but he didn't even really leave. He kind of didn't really go anywhere. I think maybe WWE wanted him to take time off, and then he didn't. Can't remember the story there. But yeah, he said some sort of goodbye after that Extreme Rules match. Oh, what's up, Zane? Thanks for 5 more. The rant you went on about Jericho versus Regal can also be said about William Regal versus Goldberg. Yeah, they were showing clips of that match during the Streak Network special. And Regal, you know, I've watched that match a few times. Regal, he wasn't really shooting on Goldberg. He was making things difficult for Goldberg, and he was really exposing the inexperience that he had. Because me, as like the smarky type of fan that I was back then, me and my buddy Daniel, we were both the same way. We were just disgusted at Goldberg because we're like, oh, manufactured record. You knew they were adding numbers to his record every week. And I was, you know, I had the same feelings about Goldberg that I did about the Ultimate Warrior. As a kid, I saw through the Ultimate Warrior. He was never my favorite, ever. You know, I liked Warrior, just like I liked Hogan, but for the same reasons I didn't like Hogan that as much as some other wrestlers like Brett was the same with Warrior, except it was even more. Hogan could go when he wanted to. Hogan was a lot like Batista. I think like when Hogan wanted to turn it up, or if you put Hogan in a Japan ring, an all Japan ring or something, he can fucking do things in there. So Hogan's not completely incapable back in his day, where Warrior kind of was. He was reckless, didn't know what he was doing, injured a lot of guys, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, shit like that. And his matches were see-through. All he was doing was coming out and hitting you with like 4 clotheslines, press slamming you and dropping you. I mean, that takes strength, but other than that, what does it really take? Hitting you with a splash and then pinning you, and he's out of the ring, you know, before you even realize the match starts. Goldberg was designed to get over the same way. Come out and snort, spit, breathe fire, spear you, jackhammer, boom, you're in the showers before you really even break a sweat. So they had a lot of that in common, and I could see through. As a smarky little twerp wrestling fan, I was offended, you know, that this guy was pushed so hard when he didn't know how to wrestle. And William Regal showed that to everybody, and that got him in trouble. That match got him fired because, you know, that you went out there, you know, this is a guy that we're trying to push here, and I can kind of understand WCW being upset, and William Regal claims that, you know, it wasn't intentional. They told him to give him 6 minutes, so he did, but, you know, some of the things he was doing, he was showing that, you know, if a real fight between those two broke out, Regal would kill him, you know. Just because you have muscles doesn't mean you can fight. And I think Regal, you know, if that would have boiled over and Goldberg would have taken liberties, Regal would have stretched him. I think Gerald Briscoe in 1998 could have beat up Bill Goldberg, honestly. Not that Bill isn't tough and probably couldn't beat the hell out of some guys, but if he ever gets in an altercation with anybody with some real combat sports experience, he's going to go down. So Regal kind of exposed that there on Nitro. That was a great moment for Nitro. Great moment for me. Oh, yeah, Joey's Adventure, I would never bet on that. I mean, it would be closure if Cena's last match was last year against Bray Wyatt, but hell no. Hell no. That ain't his last match. That is absurd. I mean, if anything, Cena is just The Rock now. If anything, maybe he will take another year off and he'll come back, but he's got another world title to win. John Cena, I will bet anything that he will be champion again. He'll probably be Universal Champion because WWE wants his name on that title lineage. I have no doubt. So, yeah, not only will Cena be back, he'll be champ. I don't know. Well, I don't know, Mike Witt. I'm trying to think. Like, the Freebirds were there early. You know, they only had that cup of coffee there, and they were dicks, and Andre got them fired, like in '83. But coming back, they were so over, there would have been no reason for them to come there. It was kind of like the same reason, like Jim Cornette's told the story of him in the Midnight got called up there for a meeting. But, you know, they didn't really feel good about what they were going to be doing with him creatively. You know, are we going to work with the champs? Are we going to get a run with the belts? Or, you know, what do you have planned for us? And all they really cared about was, oh, you're going to have action figures. and they didn't really have a whole lot to offer them. And they're like, well, we're already making money and we're over like Rover where we are. So now pass. And the Freebirds during their, their most over days, I don't think would have wanted to make the jump. Now after that would have started, then you're going to talk late 80s, early 90s. And I don't think there would really have even been a place for them because, I mean, they were in WCW a little bit, or a version of the Freebirds. Michael Hayes was anyway. Gordy was in and out. And if you brought them into WWE with the teams that they had at that time that they would have been brought in, probably somewhere between 89 and 91 or something like that. If they really caught him at the tail end there, or at least Michael Hayes. But I don't think they would have came there any earlier than that because they were too over. 85 and 86, 87, shit like that. They were too over where they were. So if they came in, I almost can't see them fitting in with Demolition and the Bolsheviks and stuff. I don't know. They don't fit in. They're better where they were, I think, I think they fit in best when they were there in 83 because shit wasn't quite as cartoony yet. And they could probably get a lot of heat with some of those audience, some of the live shows and stuff in WWE, but they were all idiots. And I forgot the story where they were drunk or something, and Andre got pissed and said that he's going to get them all fired, and they were. Don't cross Andre. Ronda Rousey's got 93.9. That's actually higher than I thought because she did take a couple of L's there. I don't know how many wins she had prior to that before getting knocked out a couple of times. Oh man, Nordic. I don't know, man. If you think about, we've always talked about what ifs and speculated. That's always fun. But if you try to think about what wrestling would have been like had Triple H and Stephanie not gotten together, or if something would have went wrong, TNA might not have been founded by Jeff Jarrett. It might have been founded by Triple H. Because think about the jeopardy he put his career in. A lot of people are like, oh, he married the boss's daughter. He gets every opportunity. It could have easily gone the other way. What if they get together, there's some sort of a bad breakup, and what happened to China winds up happening to Triple H, and the company just kind of can't keep them there because it's conflict of interest or whatever. And unless they try to remain business and professional and like, okay, he's going to stay there and work. Is he going to be given every opportunity? Is he going to be given all these world title runs if he sticks around? If the relationship with Stephanie didn't work out, probably not. I still think Triple H would still be a champion or whatever, but he would have never had that reign of terror. He would have never, been so prominent in the company. And he certainly, probably had a lot of say in what he did back then and stuff. And that wouldn't have been the case either. So it would have been a whole different story for Triple H. He would have been, like a Stone Cold. He would have been just like another big piece of their talent that obviously, yes, they would have wanted to keep and not lose to WCW if they could help it, unless something was really ugly between him and Stephanie and the breakup was bad and they had no choice but to kind of part ways professionally. If he was able to stay there, you got to think it ain't going to be the same story that would turn out to be with him and in all his years. And who knows, by then he probably, once one of his contracts were up, he might have jumped to TNA and gone over there for a while, only to come back to WWE. He might have had a career path more similar to like a Booker T in WWE, where he's in, he's out, sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not, kind of thing. Maybe he has a podcast, maybe works the kickoff show panels, shit like that, like it could have been a completely different thing for him. It's happening out there somewhere in the multiverse. Triple H is hosting every pay-per-view kickoff somewhere, or he's doing the watch-alongs on YouTube or something with the rest of the J-Brones. Oh, so Hogan's got him by just a bit, huh? I was thinking Cena had a better winning percentage, but I guess I was wrong. But not by much. That's pretty much a dead even right there between those two. Eddie and Benoit being alive today, would they be in AEW with Jericho? I think probably, maybe one of them would. I'd like to see, provided Benoit, don't forget, even if Benoit would have lived, his brain still would have been applesauce. He might not have been able to really do a whole lot. But had the concussions and the CTE and the brain injuries and all that stuff with Benoit not been a factor, I could see him at least being there with Jericho, whether or not he could wrestle or not, who knows, or at least being like a backstage agent, or being in, because at this point he'd be well in his 50s now too, maybe playing more of an Arn Anderson role or something like that. Eddie Guerrero, same thing. He could be there as well, unless, with Eddie, it seemed like well, I don't know if that even makes sense, but I don't know if WWE would have maybe let him go. They would have kept him in the family there and made sure that he didn't do anything like that. But I think it's a good possibility that he's there. You know, Jericho would be urging them to come. You know, he would probably not leave them alone. Can you guys get out of your contract? Get out of your contract. When's your contract up? You know, why don't you come over here to AEW? I would love, it would just warm my heart if we could just, you know, have an image of backstage at AEW with Jericho in the middle with his arm around Eddie and Benoit, all of them in their 50s, all of them happy, healthy, alive. What could have been, you know? What could have been. ECW, you feel like ECW would still be alive if Chris was still alive, or he may have retired? Chris Benoit, I don't think so, because Chris Benoit was out of there before ECW really even hit its stride. I mean, he was in there when they first became ECW, and they had a lot of that good wrestling. Al Snow was there, Benoit was there, Malenko was there, some of the luchadors were there, and he was there too. But they didn't even make pay-per-view until well after he was gone. He was already in WCW by that point for a couple of years before they finally, you know, before ECW became really geared towards just hardcore stuff. That's when it was Sandman and Raven and Taz and Funk and Shane Douglas and guys like that really leading the charge that put them on pay-per-view. Benoit was not a factor in that. So I don't think he would have really been a factor. He wasn't really a player in ECW of any kind that would have been a make or break deal for the company, because he was only in there for a short time. He did make an impact, but he wasn't, company wasn't riding on him. It was a big loss for them to lose him and Eddie and stuff, but they knew they were passing through. Jericho passed through ECW. Everybody did. So I think it was understood that those guys were there. Everybody goes there before the big contract, before they get the big contract. Steve Austin did the same thing. The minute I remember listening to the hotline that day at school when Steve Austin was released from WCW, I'm like, sweet, he's going to go to WWE. But he turned up in ECW first. Paul Heyman called him, brought him in, did all the promo stuff. That was the early days. That laid the foundation for the Stone Cold Steve Austin character. And he was working there until he got the call from WWE to come. So a lot of those guys, when they came in, I'm sure with Paul Heyman, it was understood that he ain't keeping these guys forever, you know, because he's not going to be able to pay them what the other companies are. So they kind of passed through as their way. They transitioned from one company to the other. Mick Foley did the same thing. Left WCW, spent time in ECW, went to WWE. It always happened that way with ECW. They really were the little transitional piece that wrestlers kind of passed through on their way to their next big contract. So I don't think Benoit would have had any effect, live or die, on the survival of ECW. Yeah, I'm surprised Chavo's not in AEW either, doing something there. He was on the Jericho Cruise. He was great. We were watching the Booker T podcast. I have video footage of this on my channel. And he's doing the podcast there, and then Charmel is there. She's there videotaping the whole thing. And Chavo just shows up. Chavo just gets on the mic and just says some really nice words about Booker T. He seems like he's in good with all the AEW guys. So why they haven't brought him in as just an agent or something, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to be there. Maybe he's had the opportunity. You know, just because he's not there doesn't mean he wasn't offered. Vicky's there. So if he had if he wanted to work for AEW, I'm sure all it would take is a phone call. I'm sure he could just be like, yo, Chris, can you get me a gig? And he probably could. And Chris texts Tony, hey, you want to hire Chavo? And then Tony's like, yeah, fuck it. Let's hire Chavo. So they bring him in. So I don't think it would really be that hard for Chavo to really get a job there. So maybe he doesn't want to. Goldberg's only at 68. Damn. How is he? Okay, I was about to say anonymous. I'm like, how anonymous? How does he at 68, but it does not include WCW? I was about to say 173-0. Shouldn't he be like 99.9? You would have risked it too. It was a calculated risk by Triple H doing that. You're right. You would have risked it because Stephanie is so beautiful, but also, Triple H risked it because he knew it was a high risk, but also a very, very, very high reward. And if everything goes right and things are good between Triple H and Stephanie, and they fall in love and they have a family, which they have, then he is essentially a McMahon now. And he's now going to be the man running the company. And it could have gone very, very different. So I've always at least tried to play devil's advocate there with Triple H. I'm like, at least give him credit for taking the risk, because a lot of people say he took the easy way out. He didn't know it's going to work out. You don't start a relationships with somebody and then for sure in a month it's going to work out. He was doing that saying, oh, fuck, there's a lot on this. If we don't work out or something, or she farts too much in bed and I can't be with her, and I have to leave her or something, that's going to really adversely affect my career. So he took a big risk there, but it was a risk that paid off. Man. Yeah, we talked about Foley potentially being the surprise last night as an on-air personality. The only thing that was making me think it wouldn't be him is because they just brought Paul White there to be an on-air personality, and I think they already have enough commentators. They got Jim Ross, they got Shivani, they got Excalibur. Now Big Show's going to be coming in. Taz sits in sometimes. Jericho's hilarious when he feels like doing commentary. One of the Marvezes do it a little bit too, right? So they're all right in the commentary department. So if they, and the only other spot then for Foley would be like in an Arn role or Jake role or Taz role or Tully role. And there's a whole bunch of them there too. So what would he really offer? And plus the way they're hyping it up, it would make sense though if it was one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers, because Mick is a legend, but what could he really bring to the table, at this point in AEW? We love Mick, but Hunter Hearst McMahon, yeah. Double H. Roman Empire, what's up? Good to see you. Why they changed sheep herders to the bushwhackers. I think I told you guys this in a recent podcast. I drove to Arizona a few weeks back, and we listened to the Bushwhackers episode on the Something to Wrestle podcast. Pretty interesting there. But it wasn't surprising, though, that they weren't going to, WWE at that time, sheep herders, that's not a gimmick for them. So that they were changed up a lot. And the Bushwhackers became kind of a really fun-loving, kid-licking team. Looking back now, I don't think you can get away with going out in the audience and just licking some kids. But try it. See what happens. Next time you go to a show, just go lick a kid. See what happens to you. And film it. And tweet me the video. I'd appreciate that. Once tickets are on sale again, you can go to a show. Give that a shot and send them over to me at GoodMikeWork on Twitter. But yeah, you look back now, I'm like, damn, you're going around licking kids and shit. But they were fun. Bushwhackers were a trip. And apparently they were always business. They were always cool and down to do whatever. Super easy to work with. Bruce had nothing but compliments for both of them in terms of, who they were as people, personalities, and dealing with them in terms of segments, matches, and shit like that. So they were good dudes. Peace out, Zane G. Thanks for being here. I'm about to leave too. Since we've been going for a couple of hours here. Comedic Genius, we're going to go live it's right under the screen right now as I'm talking. We're going to be going live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So 5 p.m. for me here on the West Coast and 8 o'clock East Coast. And you can adjust your time depending on where you live in the world. But yeah, that'll be this coming Sunday. And that's the time we went up for WrestleMania 17. It worked out pretty good. Unfortunately, if you are on the East Coast, you are going to have to stay up until midnight to watch this. But it's really not convenient for me to go up here any earlier than that. Like in the middle of the afternoon, it's better for me to do like early evening or something like that. So I tried to go as early as possible. I figured 5 o'clock for me would be the best time. So stay tuned this Sunday. That'll be fun. We had a great time last 2 weeks ago doing WrestleMania 17. That was so much fun. So we'll be doing that again this week, really trying to get ourselves ready and amped up and fired up for WrestleMania because it's just about a month away now. Ryan, since a year since COVID started, what's the biggest positive in the business since? I would probably say the introduction of cinematic matches. Both companies have done them out of necessity, and they've all been probably more good than bad, and it has now opened up doors to maybe do this forever. Cinematic matches might not be super common, but they're now options where I guess they technically were before. We did have the Wyatt family New Day thing, and we had the Wyatt and Orton did the thing where he burned the house down. So we've done some, and Matt Hardy really started this. Credit goes to really Matt Hardy and the deletion series and everything that was started in TNA. But the pandemic made it a reality. The pandemic made it something that now can be done with more talent than just one. And we saw a great one last night at Revolution. The Sting and Darby Allin street fight stuff was really good. And WWE has had some really good ones. So them being able to incorporate those and being able to showcase, talent in other ways. And I thought it was a really good way to deal with Sting last night, even though it was his official return to the ring. This is a taped, edited match to where, they could do retakes and make sure that everything looks good and Sting looks as good as possible. So I think that is a kind of a positive that's come out of this, is now you have that option. And other than that, I can't think of very many positives that have come out of this, other than probably just Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is the one piece of talent that makes you forget that there's no crowd because of his demeanor, his persona, his attitude, this new push he has, this heel turn with Paul Heyman. He's the champ now. All the work he's doing is fantastic. That's a huge positive. Jey Uso coming out of this as now a bona fide single star who's had some really good performances and has had a great last 6 months is another positive. AEW, they deserve a lot of credit. They have had far more. They've had like 3 times more pandemic shows than they've had non-pandemic shows. They were only able to run for 4 months before the pandemic hit. And they've been able to run for this past year in Daly's place, still putting on good pay-per-views, still putting on good weekly TV. Not every Dynamite is great, but a lot of them are. And a lot of their pay-per-views are good. They've had a couple that fell a little bit flat, but they've had a lot that were pretty good. Even last night, with last night's ridiculous ending. Overall, it was a solid show. If you take away the Goldberg sparklers at the end and the huge colossal fuck-up they did, and you judge the rest of the show, even that match up until that point, it was a pretty good night. It wasn't, WrestleMania 17 or anything, but it was still really good. And so for them to be able to do that as a new company who hasn't even really had a lot of time to develop a big fan base yet anyway, and they're running empty arena shows and able to beat NXT and stuff like that, they deserve some credit for that. Yeah, but the ratings are only under 1 million viewers. Yeah, I know. So is NXT. It's not much of a difference. But when they go back to a live crowd, if NXT moves to Tuesdays and live audiences are brought in, it was great to hear those 1,500 fans last night at Revolution. And if that's now more of a reality and they start running unopposed, they can, they rode this wave. They survived this. And that's, I'm not sure if any other wrestling company would have been as lucky if they wouldn't have been able to put on compelling TV to where TNT pulls the plug. This just ain't cutting it. Sorry, guys. Bad luck, I suppose, because the XFL, they went under kind of because of this COVID, right? Once all this happened and, they kind of had to just disband and all of that. And that turned out to be quite the mess. So the fact that AEW didn't do that and they're still able to produce TV and produce pay-per-views and have some success with them, despite all this shit, and despite them not having the luxury of a Thunderdome or a luxury of 60 years of experience like WWE does, they're still able to survive all this and weather the storm and come out of it, on the other side clean. I think they deserve credit. And that's just me being honest. You can go to all those other Alvarez's and the Meltzers if you want AEW ass kissing. I'm just being honest. They deserve credit for that. Love them or hate them. Appreciate you being here, Corpse97. Thank you so much, as always. And yeah, I agree. Smash that like button. No, my schedule's not going to change due to daylight savings, really. Everything's going to remain the same for me. Yeah, WrestleMania 19, I was not a fan of the Undertaker match. That sucked. But I guess they just weren't confident in Nathan Jones. But it'll be fun to talk about all that this Sunday, Nathan Jones and all that shit. And what else was on that match? I think we had, let me see if I can remember how good I am at this. WrestleMania 19, Rey Mysterio, Matt Hardy, I think. John Cena cut a promo with a Jay-Z cutout. I think they had Miller Lite Girls there. Shawn Jericho. I don't remember what the tag was, but I'm pretty sure it was something involving the Guerreros and the World's Greatest Tag Team or something. Some match like that happened. Vince Hogan. Piper showing up there. Jericho, Shawn. Austin, Rock. Austin's final match in the company. Of course, later on, we then had Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle in the main event, with Brock almost dying. What else did we see? There was way more than that, but now I'm stumped. What was another? There's got to be another feature match on there that I'm not thinking of. Help me out. But it was a really good pay-per-view. I remember enjoying it. And, of course, the Undertaker tag. Was RVD in the company at that point? Who did he face? He might have been hurt. He might have been in a tag team, too. I don't remember. What did Kane do at that show? Where was Kane? Was Kane on that show? That was probably some multi-man tag match or something. Y'all might have to help me out with the with my memory there. And it was the night after on Raw that Goldberg showed up, speared The Rock. Oh, Triple H and Booker T. Thank you. That's another. Yeah, that's kind of a big one. That's a controversial match. I forgot about Triple H. Thank you for that, Wilson. And that's going to be a fun one to talk about, too, because there's all sorts of story behind that one. So, and what many people consider a bad decision, not putting the title on Booker T. Reign of Terror, right, y'all? Ooh, Foley managing Eddie Kingston would have been fun. That would have been. Yikes. WrestleMania 9 was Undertaker's worst streak match. Hard to vote against that one. He's had some stinkers. A couple years later, was no picnic either against Bundy. But Khali, I almost called him Khali. But in Gonzalez, yeah, that was a big pile of ass. Victoria and Jacqueline, and Triple H versus Booker. Okay. Yeah, Triple H had some racist tones in the in the promo. He said something like "people like you." There's a reason why people like you don't win the title and shit. And I'm like, all of that was something that I didn't think even needed to be incorporated into that, because the match could stand alone based on just how big those two guys are, and that's kind of a dream match. You know, Booker T was a big deal in WCW, and Triple H was always on top. We never really seen them, work together face to face, especially some big match for a title. To throw in the race card was just unneeded, unnecessary, and you could have relied on the star power both without it. So that's one aspect that I totally agree with, that they didn't need to go in that direction with those guys, because they were really at the peak of their physical conditioning at that. They were in their prime physically. Triple H looked so good, just chiseled out of granite. Booker, of course, is always just a hoss, and the match was good too. I thought the match was okay. It was just a finish that most people kind of didn't like. I love these facts. In WWE, Mojo Rawley has a better winning percentage than Goldberg. That is going to help me sleep very well at night. Thank you for that, anonymous one. Oh, that makes me so happy. Next time Goldberg's an asshole on TV, I'm like, oh yeah, well, you don't have as good a winning percentage as Mojo Rawley, so fuck off. No kidding. Kane and RVD was on the kickoff? Damn. Was that still Sunday Night Heat back in the day? I'll have to check my video library. I have all these WrestleManias taped off pay-per-view. Paid $40 for every one of them. Man, will Triple H be canceled for Katie Vick back in the day? No, probably not, but he should be, right? We're canceling everything else. Might as well cancel Triple H for Katie Vick, you corpse fucker. Oh, yeah. Steiner had two stinkers against Triple H. They wrestled back-to-back, right? They did Rumble and No Way Out, and Rumble sucked bad. I remember being so embarrassed by that match, because I wasn't into Steiner being there anyway. I didn't really care when he came in at Survivor Series the previous year. I'm like, whatever. And then he worked with Triple H, and it was just a push-up contest and everything they did. And then the match was terrible because Steiner was he was out of his league there. Steiner at one time was one of the most athletic people in the world, but now he's coming into WWE with just an incredible talent roster, and he's not good. That match sucked. They did it a month later, and from what I remember, the match was better, but he's just left off Mania completely. And then he teamed with Test, and they did the Stacy Keibler stuff. All that was so dumb, so bad. So bad. WrestleMania 2 is your worst WrestleMania ever. Looking back, I can make a case for that. I can't consider it one just because I have so many memories of it, as a kid, going to the video store and renting the copy so I can watch it. And I was a Bulldog mark, so, watching the Bulldogs win the tags was good. Bundy, bleeding buckets was pretty awesome. I still remember, I'll never forget the next morning, the sports page, the Detroit Free Press or whatever the hell we were getting. My dad pulled it out and he goes, "Gregory, look." My dad calls me Gregory. He said, "Gregory, look." And it was a big picture, black and white, of Bundy with the blood going down his head. And it's got a big headline that says "Hogan clobbers Bundy." And I remember chomping at the bit when the tape finally came out. because we didn't go to closed circuit to watch it. I didn't see it. So all I knew was like the results and what happened. So I remember when the video came out, going to the local video store and trying to watch it and trying to rent it as quickly as I could. Took months though. And now I have 3 copies of WrestleMania 2. Clamshells right behind me or on this side of me. Yeah. WrestleMania 2. Hogan and Bundy. Good stuff. Well, let's look at this card. Macho Man and George the Animal Steel. That was kind of a shitty match. I did like the Bulldogs match, although that match was basically contested inside of a trampoline. Go back and watch how bouncy that fucking ring was back then. Wonderful. Paul Orndorff and Morocco was on that. Was okay. Terry and Dory Funk were on here taking on Tito Santana and the Bulldog, or and the Junkyard Dog, excuse me. That was kind of fun. Jimmy Hart was with the Funks. Corporal Kirshner versus Nikolai Volkov. Uncle Elmer versus adorable Adrian Adonis. Hogan versus Bundy in the cage. We had the big 20-man battle royal that featured NFL players like William Refrigerator Perry, Bill Fralick, guys like that, and Andre won that. Last eliminating Bret Hart. And we had the boxing match between Mr. T and Roddy Piper. So not horrible, but they did make a big mistake going to the 3-city thing. I thought they bit off a little bit more than they can chew for that. Because that's not something I'm entirely confident they could even pull off now. Well, yeah, they could. But for 86, shit, that's takes some technology. And they ran thin. Like they had Elvira on commentary for one of the WrestleManias because they didn't have anybody else to sit in for some of these matches. So it was a mess. You saw it on closed circuit? That's awesome. I did not. I wanted to. Yeah, so the very first pay-per-view I really ever ordered was WrestleMania 4 because I was at 3. And then the Survivor Series I didn't order because I was in a very bad accident that day and got hit by a car and knocked out some of my teeth. And I was in the emergency room all Thanksgiving night of 1987. So there was no Survivor Series for Greg. So the very first pay-per-view I ever actually ordered off a pay-per-view provider was WrestleMania 4 in 88. Oh, yeah, Jake, that match isn't on there. Jake beat he beat the bald-headed guy. George Wells, I think, and that was pretty good. They put the snake on him, and I remember he was like foaming at the mouth. Good stuff. Yeah, Elmer and Adorable was not good. Yeah, modern fans, probably look back at some of that and probably cringe a little bit. And I do too, but luckily I can also remember what it was like at the time. So, and as you can too, Mike. So looking back is when, it really kind of shows its ugliness. But at the time, if you remember where you were and how you watched it and what it meant to you then, it was a big deal. So that still lives inside of me kind of thing. But, looking through, modern eyes, of course, Uncle Elmer and Adrian Adonis ain't getting any 5-star ratings from Meltzer. That's for sure. It's a match that probably shouldn't even happened. Oh, yeah, I remember Kerwin White. I don't want to remember Kerwin White because that's what Chavo was doing when Eddie died. Came out that night, I think wrestled in the tribute as Chavo Guerrero, but still had the bleached hair from the Kerwin White angle, and that was the end of Kerwin. And that was kind of a funny deal, a gimmick, too. I didn't totally hate Kerwin White. I think if they ran with it, if Eddie had not died and they ran with it a little longer, Chavo would have ran the risk of turning into like a Santino Marella, because it would have been so silly. But I think also there was a chance it could have actually gotten over more than it was. So we'll see. Anyway, we have put in a solid 2 hours tonight in the stream, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now. But I want to thank you guys for hanging out tonight. The plan as of right now is to be back up here for 3 straight days this weekend. But if I can, I'll pop up earlier if something crazy happens or whatever. I'm not going to be able to come up here to do an NXT or AEW review or anything like that this week. We'll be saving that for Saturday's podcast, but keep a lookout just in case I turn up. Otherwise, I will catch you Saturday for a brand new Winged Eagle podcast live at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Sunday, WrestleMania 19 watch along at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then, of course, 1 week from tonight, immediately following Monday Night Raw, we'll be back at it again. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your night. I'll talk to you in a few days.